Hello again. Today I want to talk to you about the movie Interstellar and whether it holds up. Short answer? No. Alright, see you next time. Nah, I'm just kidding. I have more to say. Yeah, please, stay around. I don't know if saying that it holds up or doesn't hold up is the right phrase, because the complaints that I have about this movie and why I don't like Interstellar are the same complaints I had when I went out of the theater when I first saw it in the first place. Driving home, I had about a 2-hour rant of everything I didn't like about the movie. So, I didn't have a YouTube channel then, but I do now, so you get the wonderful enjoyment of hearing me talk about everything I didn't like about Interstellar. Now, I don't have 2 hours, so this is going to be a condensed version. Overall, I could talk a lot about the science, and they got a lot of the stuff about the physics right, and they stretched it a bit and got a lot of the physics wrong, but they tried really hard to do well there, so I'm going to give them credit, and none of my complaints are going to be about the science or the world building or anything technological or things like that. So they have spaceships, sure. They have a wormhole, sure. They go past the event horizon of a black hole, sure. There are humans from the far distant future that come back in time, sure. All of that is a given. I guess, by the way, spoiler warning. So I'm going to give them all of that and assume that is a solid foundation for an interesting movie. So here is my handy-dandy metaphor. There you go. Solid foundation for a movie. Now, where it starts to be a little wobbly is the character decisions and character building. That's a bit less of a solid foundation. Now, to start off, it's the 2060s, it's in Colorado, and America, and I guess the world in general, is suffering from a blight where crops are dying and going extinct, and the ecosystem as a whole can't sustain life anymore. Okay, again, let's give that as a given. That's an interesting premise for a movie, and you can really do a lot with that. So, what do? You can't grow crops anymore. You want to make sure that you have the ability to perhaps create a new environment that can grow crops with fresh source of water and perhaps it's hermetically sealed. What's their decision in how to solve this problem? Go to the stars! Does that make sense? Couldn't you create a biodome or some sort of hermetically sealed greenhouse? But sure. Building on this, let's make the assumption that the only way to do it is to go off-planet, for whatever reason. Sure. Okay, so now the question is, where do you go if you have to go off-planet? Well, you want to go someplace that's fairly Earth-like, similar gravity, similar distance to the sun, preferably has a source of water, and have some mechanism to get there, relatively short, preferably within a lifetime. So, Mars, right? It doesn't have air, but all the places they go to in the rest of the film, a lot of them don't have air either, so why go past the solar system? But again, okay, they make that decision. It's not a good decision, but they make it, so let's keep on building. So then the question becomes, okay, you have this wormhole that magically appears outside Saturn. Fine. So we learn later on that 10 years earlier, they had sent 12 astronauts through the wormhole to 12 different planets in order to vet which one would be good for life. Sure. It's been long enough since I've seen the movie that maybe they had some throwaway line about how they can't send remote probes, but whatever. So they send 12 astronauts, and each of the 12 planets, presumably they knew those planets were there, right? Because they knew where to send those people, so they had to know something about them. They picked terrible planets. Why would you pick a planet that's so close to a black hole? You know that there's going to be huge gravitational effects. You know that there's going to be, this planet is going to be icy because of its distance from the sun, or this planet is going to be terrible for that reason, and yet they decided that, these were good enough. Fine. Again, we're building on these assumptions. Let's just assume those were their best choices, and they wanted to see as much as they could get. Okay, they send those 12 astronauts to those planets. Again, sure. So now the astronauts got there, and then we learned that 3 of them sent back a thumbs up signal. That's it? They send a single bit of information? You don't want to know more about these planets? You just want to know, yeah, good enough. No other details required. You don't... Clearly you have enough bandwidth to send, 1 bit over the span of these 10 years that they've been traveling. Perhaps you could send 2 bits. Guess not. So, fine. Let's assume that you have 1 bit of information about these planets, and you have 3 planets that you think are good enough. Fine. Which of these 2 planets do you go to first? Okay. Again, you don't know a lot of details about these planets because you only have 1 bit of information about them. You know roughly where they are cosmologically speaking. So you go to the water planet that's near a black hole first. You know that there's going to be time dilations. The whole point of the movie is that there's good physics and that they know the deal with general relativity and the gravitational effects on time. Why would you spend your first mission to the place where you know you're going to be wasting years compared to the rest of humanity? Whatever. Again, building on this, let's assume they had a good reason to go do that. It was, let's say, much closer than the other planets. Fine. Okay. So they're above that planet and they're deciding what to do. Okay, first off, they know there's a time dilation, so the thumbs up signal that they got from the guy who's down there, they know that guy's only experienced, 20 hours or however long it's been. Even if it was a pristine paradise, that's not enough time. Like, you could be landing in the Garden of Eden, and it's wonderful, and there's, fruit trees and grass and wildlife, and you're like, oh, this is the perfect planet. Don't you want to at least spend a couple nights there before you report back, hey, yeah, this is good? For all you know, the giant monster comes out at night and kills everybody. But fine. Based on a single bit of information of a thumbs up, based on 20 hours of being there, they go down to the planet. So the question is, how do they explore this planet? Well, a reasonable thing to do would be to send a probe. We have Mars rovers, send one of those. But no, they want to send, sentient people and robots down there. Okay, they have those robots, the walker guys, which is a really cool design. I don't know if it really makes sense practically speaking, but I think it's a really cool design and I'm giving the movie that. Send one of those guys! You could send him and then you could go off and do other stuff and then come back and get him back because of the time dilation. But nope, they decide that the majority of the crew has to go down there and explore the planet. Okay, again, building on those assumptions. So, the people go down there, and of course they experience time dilation, and of course, there's some problem because the ship gets flooded due to the massive waves, which they should have known about. They knew that it was a water. They were able to see the planet. They presumably have high-powered cameras and telescopes that they could observe what's going on the planet before they go down there. But fine. So they go down. They run into trouble because their ship gets flooded. They have to wait an extra hour. So by the time they get back, it turns out 26 years have passed on the ship above them, and the old man Romilly twiddles out and is like, I've been waiting for 23 years. He knew what their deal was, right? He could observe them, albeit in very slow motion, and presumably could see roughly how long they were going to take, within a couple of years. He just stayed there. They couldn't have done it where, some of them went down and the others explored the remaining planets. It seems like you should know going in, this is going to be a one-way mission. So, just split up. Divide and conquer. Okay, again, we're now at the point where, they have this very rickety foundation of all these decisions that have built on top of each other, and they're just piling another layer on top of that. So, fine. They've now wasted, 50-odd years or whatever, based on relative to Earth. So, they have to decide, they have 2 planets left, which of those planets do they go to next? They could either go to Matt Damon's planet, or they could go to Lovey McSweetheart's planet. And Anne Hathaway is very much on board with the idea of, the power of love decides which planet we should go to, and we should go to, this planet because he's my old boyfriend, and I know that he's still around, and he has better chances, but Matthew McConaughey says, no, we should go to Matt Dillon's planet because he's still broadcasting his signal, which, to be fair, is a pretty reasonable thing to do. And of course, they only have enough time to go to one planet because that's the nature of the mission. I mean, that's sort of understandable, but again, that seems silly that they would only be deciding this now when they really should have known about this from the start. So, okay, they go to Matt Damon's planet, and oh no, he's a bad guy, he lied to us, he was in cryosleep and he just wanted to get home. And it turns out, he said that the planet was more habitable lower down, even though he's on this ice planet. And he says that there's fresh water down there, but still, they have to wander around in spacesuits, so it's not that different than if you just, say, went to Mars. Oh well. So, his motivation was to just make sure that he could try to get home. Okay, so Matt Damon goes mad, he kills some folks, he steals their shuttle, he goes up to the spaceship, and he tries to dock, but can't, and dies, and it's a very exciting action scene, and overall that was pretty fun. I have no complaints about that part of the movie. And then of course they try to go home, and they have to go through the black hole and skim through it, and then Michael McConaughey goes beyond the event horizon and into the Tesseract, and has to do all that, and again, I'm not going to complain about the physics at all. That's a conceit of the movie, sure. Then he has to communicate backwards in time to his daughter about the equation for gravity or whatever, and uses the watch to adjust the, to the Morse code through the data. Again, I'm not going to complain about that, but that's really stretching it. So, fine. His daughter believes in the power of ghosts, and they tell her the secret to gravity and life and the universe and everything. Fine. She develops, anti-grav or whatever, and they're able to establish a colony surrounding, it was Jupiter or Saturn. Sure. Eventually, Matthew McConaughey comes back through the wormhole, sees his daughter as a very old woman, and then eventually goes off to find Anne Hathaway on her planet. Cool. Again, skipping over a lot of the movie there. Anne Hathaway is on her planet. She's establishing Plan B, which is she has a bunch of embryos and is going to raise a new human race on that planet. How does that work? She has like 300 babies and it's just her? Or does she like stagger them, but then again it's still just her? And she doesn't really have any resources, like she doesn't have food or water or anything. And I guess it's a planet with breathable atmosphere, but there are no structures, there's no housing or anything. This is going to be a very daunting task for her, and I don't suspect that it's going to go too well. But of course, this was the plan from the beginning. In fact, for most of the movie, they say that they never thought Plan A would work, and Plan B was going to be their only plan. So they were counting on this being a complete success, where she lands on the planet, has these 300 embryos, and nothing else. That was the plan. That was the best case scenario. Anyway, as you can tell, I didn't much care for this movie. You probably should watch it once just because it's part of the cultural zeitgeist, but there are plenty of other movies that have the same sort of impact that are much better. So, if you're interested in a movie that's sort of science-y and really claims to get the science right, I would say go with Primer. It's a really fun time travel story. If you're interested in movies where you have the power of love in a sci-fi manner and, contact from ancient aliens or whatever, I would go with Contact or perhaps Arrival. Those are both better movies than this one. If you're really enjoying this movie because of the visuals where they're flying through space and you're seeing nebula and it's very good cinematography, I would go with The Fountain from Darren Aronofsky from 2006, or with Sunshine, both of those fill that same niche and are better movies. Overall, the reason I didn't like this movie is because it didn't live up to the hype. I really enjoy these sort of hard sci-fi movies that have amazing visuals and try to make grandiose plans, and this was really billed like that. But it was really hyped up in the advertising, and it claimed to be super scientific and rigorous, and all these character motivations just mean that I found it lacking. So I guess that's a point to make about, like, don't overhype your movie, and don't claim that it's something it's not. So I guess that's it. That's my thoughts on Interstellar. So until next time, see ya.